We've been talking about I serve because of Jesus. We've been talking about that all month. It's kind of actually been our theme here at Newport Christian for the year. And we've been talking about I serve because of Jesus and how we are people whose calling is to serve, who are created to serve, and not just because it's a nice thing to do, but that there's more to it than that. And that's kind of been our focus all year. This month, I've had different folks come up and share every Sunday kind of where they've been serving, where God has really put them to use their gifts, their talents in service to Him, to honor Him. And so it's been kind of cool. I really enjoyed it. I think I've heard a lot of people give positive feedback. It's kind of been cool to get to know some of our church members too a little bit better. And so it's been pretty cool. Today, we're actually going to have Larry come up, and he's going to share, and he's actually going to share about a few different organizations. See, Larry has a huge heart for service, big, caring guy who just really has a passion for helping others in Jesus' name. And I love that about Larry. Larry, not only does he serve outside the church, but he's leading our bathroom renovations. Larry does a lot. And so please give Larry a hand. Thanks for sharing today, Larry.
Thank you very much. Two reasons why I serve. Number one is you are running out of time. In Luke 12:35, Jesus says, "Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning like men waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. I tell you the truth, he will dress himself to serve. We will have them recline at the table, and we will come and wait on them." So Jesus, in the narrow passage, we could think of this as, well, the Son of Man is going to return, right? But I would say this, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Cascadia subduction event, right? We know the earthquake's going to happen, we don't know when. But I would say there's another way to look at this, it's a little wider, and that is this. Jesus isn't going to come and see us, we're going to go see Jesus. And the reality is, a lot of us have less than 20 years to get there, right? You know, when Brian Heister is my age, I won't be here. You have a limited amount of time to get stuff done. And I'm encouraging you all to get involved and do it while you can. The second reason to serve is as a form of worship. So in John 13:14, Jesus, this is a story about washing the feet. So I love about books. Okay. All right. Now that I am your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I have set you as an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. So Jesus laid it out. Help others. He shows us how to do that. It is a form of worship. So sometimes we feel the calling to serve. I think about Tanya and the food share, how that came about for her. And other times, a need needs to be met. So I'll give you an example. Playing in the worship band, that's fun. I have a lot of fun doing that. Working on a church restroom, that's more like work, okay? But it's a need that needs to get done. So washing dishes and cleaning, that's a menial job, but you think about that. There's a spirit of gratitude there that exists in quiet service for us to make a difference, even though how it seems trivial, it is important. So is there a slide up there? So I'm involved with different groups, so I'm just going to take you through some quick ones here. The first one I talk about is Grace Wins. So I got involved with that a year or two ago, and that's really for the warming shelter piece of it. So right now, you can serve at the warming shelter, and what it is they need people to be with the crowd down there overnight, the warming shelter. What's it take? Well, you got to be awake, okay? So it's really not too demanding, but what I will tell you is I see people up front. I drive by them all the time, every day. I recognize them, but you're down there with them, that they are people and they count. And what you've got to do is be in a position to go down there and just hang out with them for 2 or 3 hours a night. And so those opportunities right now, and I'm telling you what, it is tough to live on the street, but they're doing it. And there's lots of reasons why, but you can make a difference for them right now. The second one is Salvation Army. So Salvation Army I got involved with because of the homeless situation, and I know the Salvation Army is involved. This year, they raise money. They raise about $45,000 a year. How they do that through bell ringing. Okay, so this year it's going to be 100% volunteer, because in years past it cost them $10,000 to hire people to do some of this. Right now, we're going to do it this year, all volunteer. That means they're looking for people. So I'd encourage you to go do some bell ringing. It's actually a lot of fun. Lisa and I have done it. You get this. You see people that they come through there, and by the way, I like guilt trip on them when they come in. About donating here, right? So, but that makes a difference. Helping people out. And then the last one is this thing called CURE. Well, you might wonder, what is CURE? CURE is Citizens United to Rehabilitate Errands. And if you asked me 1 year ago, Larry, what do you think about getting into prison ministry type stuff? I'm thinking, I don't think so. But it's funny how God works. Because our son's in prison now. And it's opened my heart, just ripped it open. And I'm a lot more open to people, and especially prisoner families. I mean, this is so far out of our wheelhouse, it ain't even funny. But they're people, they are broken just like us. The people inside the prison and the families of the prisoners. And it is a way to get involved, and I've met some great people. One couple there, their son's getting out in 18 years, they're probably 70-something right now. I realize they'll probably die before he gets out of prison. So it is hard stuff, but it is good stuff to help people to get rehabilitated and lean on one another in hard times. So I encourage you guys to find your path. You're running out of time, and you can make a difference the way Jesus washed his disciples' feet, that we are to serve others. So let me throw a quick prayer up there. Dear Father, thank you so much for just showing us an example. You've given us everything we've got. Those molecules that got woven together that make us us, we play no role in that, but yet we have it. Help us to use that each and every day. Be cheerful, be enthusiastic, lift one another up, make a difference in this world while we still can. We are so grateful for you and so thankful. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. And my hope is this month, if you've heard one or all of these different people sharing this month, just hearing their hearts, my hope is that maybe there's been some sort of an inspiration. Maybe you're plugged in and it's just a reminder, hey, there's a reason why I serve. That's right. And maybe it just gives you a little bit of a refresher. Now maybe you're not plugged in somewhere and you've heard a different spot. You go, maybe that's an area that God could really use me. Or maybe you heard a bunch of areas and you thought, well, none of those are my fit, but I see the passion here, and I see that God uses people, so maybe I can find a spot for me. So my hope is that not only do we get to know about our church family a little bit better, but that it inspires us a little bit too, to get plugged in a little bit better. Well, today as we close up on serving, Larry gave a little bit of a spoiler for me. I want to look at Jesus today, and I want to look at one of the greatest stories of serving in the Bible. And it's this story of Jesus there at the Last Supper with his apostles, with his disciples, sitting around eating a meal, and he stops in the middle of this meal and does something that would have been so mind-blowingly shocking, in that he gets down and does the most humble, menial task in washing his followers' feet. And it's shocking for us. It would have been very shocking for them. And I want to look at that today. Let's just start out today by even reading this story. We're going to be in the book of John, chapter 13. And I want to just start out by reading this story, and then we'll kind of go back through it a little bit. John chapter 13, starting in verse 1. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Then jumping down to verse 12 here, when he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. And so here is Jesus. He's at this last meal. He's with his followers. And as we see in the story, no one has washed their feet. And that's a pretty big deal back in those days. They're wearing sandals. We all know that. You've seen all the Jesus pictures, right? They're all wearing sandals, and there were no paved roads, nothing like that. It was filthy outside. Their feet got pretty disgusting. They're walking on roads and paths where animals went, where dirt was, or if it rained, it was mud, it was thick, it was gross, it was disgusting, and they would travel through. And so when you would go to someone's house, what would happen would be that the least important servant in the entire house, or if you didn't have service, the lowest member of the family in the entire house, it was their job to wash everybody's feet. And it was always the least important person because it was such a gross, disgusting job. And it was so nasty and nobody wanted to do it, right? Even clean feet gross out, it seems like half the people in the world, much less dirty, nasty feet. And so that was the person's job. You never wanted to be that person. Yeah. You never wanted to be that foot cleaner. And so they came in, well, here's Jesus and his men, and they're coming into this house that's rented. And they didn't rent servants. They didn't have servants traveling with them. And so they come in this house. There's no one who's hired, who's around to wash their feet. And so they come in, and no one in the group volunteered to be the foot washer, we noticed. In fact, if you look in Luke's telling of this story, there's a point during the meal where they go back to this argument they've had before about who is the greatest among them. That was the argument. So obviously no one's going to volunteer to put themselves in the lowest, most humble, disgusting position. And they're arguing who is the greatest, and I don't know for sure, but I would not be surprised if it was about the time that they were having this conversation when Jesus decided to get up and perform this task. Here they are talking about who's the greatest, and he decides to live it out in a way that was mind-blowing. In a way that would not be how anyone in their right mind would think, oh, well, if I want to be the greatest in this room, this is what I have to do. And if you really look at the circumstances, it's even a little bit more mind-blowing, because look at this with me. Back in John, starting in verse 1, it says, it was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. So Jesus understood what was about to happen. He wasn't surprised when later on this very night he was arrested. He wasn't surprised that he was going to be killed soon. He got it. He understood it. He knew about it. And here's a man who is hours away from being arrested, with the eventual leading to his being put to death. He probably had a lot on his mind. You think? And yet he chose, in the midst of all this life turmoil, to put all of that on hold. To say it doesn't matter what's coming up, doesn't matter what my plans are, doesn't matter all my busy schedule. Instead, I'm going to focus on service. Maybe service is kind of important. Maybe service is something that Jesus sees as a priority in life. And we all of us, we have busy, good grief, we're coming into Thanksgiving week, right? This is the busy time of year, Thanksgiving and Christmas and December, and we've all got schedules and plans, and you're going to try to meet with family, and you're going to try to spend time with friends, and you got to go out Christmas shopping, and Black Friday's coming, and you've got all of this stuff, because Black Friday's when you get good Christmas deals, right? And you got to go out, and you've got to make sure that you squeeze in all of your Christmas traditions all year, all month long, and you got to get this and do that. It's busy. And even when we're not in the Christmas season, good grief, doesn't life seem busy? We've got all of these different responsibilities and things to take care of and things that we're trying to do. And sometimes it seems like service can get pushed to the side. It can be made less of a priority, and yet Jesus, a few hours, again, let me say this because I don't think I can say this clearly enough, a few hours before he was arrested, he knew he was going to get arrested, and he chose in the last few hours before that to get down and wash some dirty feet. That's powerful. I could just stop right, I'm not going to, but I could stop right there. That's powerful. Because he understood not only the value of service, but the value of humility. The value of putting others first, because it wasn't just about the fact that they needed clean feet. There was more to it than the fact that they had mud between their toes. It was this act of humility. It was this act of putting others first. And so he didn't care about what his future plans were. He didn't care about his schedule or his busyness. He focused on serving. Well, then we get to verse 2. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. And so Jesus, once again, he knew, Jesus wasn't oblivious to this fact. He knew what was going on here. He knew that one of the 12 men that he had chosen to spend hours of his time with, that he had selected, that he had poured himself into, that he had called a friend, that he had eaten with meal after meal, that he had taught to, that he had shared with, who had seen him in all of his private, personal moments and times. He knew that that this man, that Judas, was going to betray him. He knew that one of his closest friends on this earth was going to turn around and stab him in the back. And we don't know where in the process Jesus knew this. We don't know if he asked Judas to follow him and he knew at that moment that he was going to betray him. We don't know if he figured it out later, if that was revealed to him later. But what we do know is that he understood, and that during this time with Judas, even if he went into the relationship, understanding that this guy was going to betray him, he still spent all of that time with him. He still poured all of that energy into him. He still put all of that emotional love and care and energy and effort into this relationship. And here was the guy sitting there at his last meal before he was going to die. And he could look at him in the face and see this man that he knew had already sold him out. And yet he still, in that moment, chose to get up from his chair, take off his outer garment, wrap himself in a towel, and wash his followers' feet. And it doesn't say his followers except for Judas. He still chose to wash everybody's feet. And the way church works, we get hurt in the church, don't we? People say things they don't mean. People say things they do mean. People can be mean and cruel and hurtful, and we can get hurt. We can get hurt outside the church. We can have people that we care about, people who are important to us, people that we have poured time and energy and emotions into, who turn around and stab us in the back. And it's so easy in those times to want to just say, I just need a little me time. I just need to really, and that's true. We do sometimes need to focus on ourselves. Jesus pulled off to his own. Jesus knew that there were times when we needed to be alone and spend some time in prayer and refresh and recover. And yet here in this moment, facing his betrayer, he still chose to serve. He still said, you know what, I'm hurting. I could focus on this. I could just focus on the pain. And I could let the pain and the hurt and the suffering, I could just let it pull me away. I could just withdraw. Would anybody have blamed him if he had withdrawn into himself, knowing what was coming, knowing he was going to get arrested, knowing that one of his friends was going to betray him in a few short hours? No one would have blamed him if he'd said, guys, I just need a minute. I just don't really want to talk to anybody right now. I don't want to deal with anybody right now. Even being in the room, fellowshipping with these guys and sharing with them and teaching them, nobody would have blamed him if he hadn't wanted to be the servant. Especially when these same followers are talking about which one of them is the greatest. And yet, in that moment, he said, that's not the priority right here. I'm going to serve. I'm going to do something different. Verse 3. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. And I don't think this can be overestimated or overvalued. Here is Jesus. Just a reminder, this is God's Son. This is Emmanuel. This is God in the flesh. He had come to earth from God. He was with God, and he chose to walk on this earth. And he knew that when he was killed, when he was gone, he was going back to be with God. This is like the greatest of all award ceremonies, right? And we see throughout the Bible that his name is going to be lifted up. At the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. This is an important guy, and he's about to be lifted up in glory and seated at the right hand of the Father. If there is any person at any time who had no business choosing to serve, this was him, and this was that moment. And yet Jesus still chose to take off that outer robe, to put on a towel, and to wash feet. What kind of a man is this? What kind of a servant's heart did Jesus have in this moment? And there are so many times in life when we get built up. We all have times in life where we get built up. Maybe you get an award. Maybe it's in passing when somebody compliments you or pats you on the back. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all need encouragement. We all need support. But sometimes it's easy to think, well, this is mine. I'll serve later, but this is my moment. This is my time. I just need a minute because I did do something good. And Jesus didn't revel in that. He didn't focus on that. Instead, he focused on serving. So he pushed aside his own glory that he had every right to have. And he made the choice to serve. And that's Jesus. Well, Jesus, so he's gone through all these things, and now I'm going to jump down back to verse 12 here in this story. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for this is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. And so in the previous verse, we saw Jesus was way bigger than this moment. He's way bigger than the job that he did. Here we see a different comparison. Here we see he's bigger than the people. He's greater than the people he served. Not just is he too big for this moment, not only is washing feet way below Jesus's skill level, his pay level, right? Yeah. Not only is washing feet below his salary level, but the people that he's washing the feet of are way beneath him, simply because they're human. This is a man who is fully God and fully human at the same time. This is the one who created the universe. He's sitting there with his creations. They call him Master and Lord, and that's the right thing for them to do, because he was. He was their Master. He was their Lord. He's above them. He's more powerful than them. He's worth more than them. They're lowly human beings, and yet, in that moment, Jesus chose service. He chose humility. He chose to put them first. That was he wasn't forced to do it. That was his choice. In the midst of all this turmoil, at the time when he was going to get arrested, when he was being betrayed by a friend, when he's about to go sit at the right hand of God, and he's sitting with all of these just regular human beings who didn't even understand what was about to happen, he chose to serve. And I think we don't really think that we would never say we're above other people, and I think for the most part we would never even consciously believe that. And I think sometimes we don't serve because, well, that's somebody else can take care of that piece of service. Somebody else can handle that task. Somebody else can be responsible for that. I've got other things I'm taking care of. I've got other responsibilities. This is more my skill set. This is more my wheelhouse. This is more where I'm at. This can be done by someone else. I think it's too often to think of ourselves as too important. Not always consciously. I think vast of the time it's subconsciously. We push it off. I've done my time. I've served there before. Somebody else can do it now. I've been there, done that. I've moved on. And yet Jesus humbled himself to the lowest task, meant for the lowest servant. The task of washing feet. This task of humility. And he gets done with that, and he tells his apostles, you call me Master, you call me Lord. And then in verse 15 he says, I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do that. We've been talking about serving all month, all year. And we see here this example by Jesus of service. This example of his heart being opened up and revealing true greatness. Maybe not in the eyes of the world, but in the eyes of the one who matters. This is true greatness. To humble yourself. To put others, for whatever the job, whatever the task, to humble yourself and do it. And there are different ways to be called into service. Sometimes God puts something on our hearts. Sometimes He puts skill sets in our lives. Sometimes He just lays a need right in your path, like a bathroom that needs renovated. And God puts us in different areas of service, different ways at different times, and yet God calls each one of us to serve. And not just to serve because He wants us to stay busy, not just to serve because He wants to get a few nice things done in this world, but to serve for a greater purpose. To serve for His name. No servant is greater than the master. We're simply servants of God. When we serve others, we're serving God. It is a form of worship, just like Larry said. It's a form of worship. When we serve others, we are building up God's special creations. His children, we are showing love to His children. What better way to show love to a parent than to love their kids, right? We're answering this call that God has given us, this call that Jesus placed out there for His followers to serve. It's an act of obedience. And our ultimate responsibility as Christians, talked about it this month, is to point people to Jesus. Is to shine a light right towards Jesus. Is for people, when they see us serve, to glorify our Father in heaven. And when we serve, it should be to honor His name. It should be done not just to make somebody happy for a moment, but to invest in someone for eternity. To humble ourselves the way our Savior set the example of, the way that He asked us to live, and to serve in His name. Let's pray. Father, I thank You. I thank You because